Welcome to the Codecast podcast by the Austin Code Department, where we talk about everything code related. In this episode, we sat down with an inspector to talk about a case that had a major impact on them. So let's go ahead and get started.
Hi, my name is Dylan Su, and this is my story as a call officer. This story especially came to my mind is the story during my younger years as a new officer. And I never imagined so much action happen as a call officer, because normally people think call officer only deal with highway grass and trash situation, but this one take a little bit more action to it. So originally this case came to Austin Code in 2013. It was reported by APD officer from the police department. It's complaint about residents are tampering with the water meter and possibly stealing city property, city resources, and possibly also causing contaminations in the neighborhood. So I was assigned with senior officers doing inspections on the property and trying to investigate and see what's going on the property. During our initial inspection, we found out the property was filled with trash, and as we look into the case history, we found out that there are several complaints about drug activities. So we actually did reach out to the local district representative from the police department, trying to see if we can schedule some coordinations, initiation to the property. So while we were actually discussing that plan with Austin Police Department, we found out that they're actually doing a raid on the property because all the drug activities on site, and they actually got a lead that could be there's some cocaine over there. They're manufacturing several things on there. So we actually set out the sting operations with police department along with SWAT teams. I think it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and then they start this operation. Just like movie things that SWAT team ran into the property with the armored vehicles, and like you start hearing chatterings, and like there's 13 people got arrested in the process. Police later on sweep the property, make sure it's safe before the co-inspectors able to enter the property. Of course, at the time that we enter with the search warrants. So during the search on the property, we found out that not only the water meter was tampered and the tenants on site was stealing water, they were also stealing electricity from the nearby electrical pole. We found out several temporary extension cords running through the property, and they're using that as a regular electrical plug. And a lot of times those could serve as dangers to the property, because if there's a power surge, an extension cord can melt and can cause fire. And we found out there's tons of unsafe practice on the properties. There's a lot of the tenants tampering with the plumbing system. So all the plumbing is wrong. Sometimes you may imagine that little plumbing you did it wrong. It can cause sewer gas to back off into the properties. People can get poisoned or sick in the process. We also found out that the window was boarded up with wooden boards, so if there's fire happens, they cannot escape off the properties. Just little things like that. And while we were doing the inspection on the property, the floor is actually not really stable. So we found out several holes literally just on the floor. And actually the senior inspector, when we were on site doing inspection, he actually twisted his ankle and fell through. So that was another danger during the job. So while we were actually checking out the property, we also found out that there is RV vehicles also laying next to the property. So can you imagine 13 people cramming into a little house? It was a 2-1, two bedroom, 1 bathroom, little property with 13 people crammed in there, along with that RV. it's definitely a zoning violation for over occupancy. And then because this is a considered residential neighborhood, they cannot actually live in the RV site. So that's also another zoning violation. So with all this violation we found on the property, we later on trying to get a hold of the owner, trying to resolve the issues. Unfortunately, the owner is not complying at the time. So later on, we have to go through the legal process to move forward with the BSC, which is Board of Standard Commissions, and to ask for orders for repair. And I think the legal case went through probably 6 months or so. And the inspector talked with the neighborhood, and they actually request to see if the inspector can help them remove the property. Because of all the previous situation with the Austin Police Department, with the transients, drug activities on site, we're able to get a police report to support the decision to demolish the property. And the location of the property is close by the school district as well. So after we present all the structural violation on the property, along with police report and what it would actually cost to the community, and actually also the community neighbors presenting their stories at the BSC process. So the commissioners ended up to be granting the city to demolish the property on site. With the structure eventually removed, the pieces actually restored in the neighborhood. We later on did speak with the district representative in the area, asked if drug activities have been slowing down in the neighborhood. According to the neighbors, they said that definitely brought a lot of light to the neighborhood. And I think this is a little piece of action that we can take to help the neighborhood. Of course, it's not every day it's like dramatic like that one. But it is something that Austin Code is able to move forward and help the neighborhood to see a little bit of peace of mind. A lot of time, there's a lot of misfortunes in the community. It is my goal to do my best if I can serve the community with all my knowledge, and hopefully that little effort that we do can see a little bit change in the local neighborhood.